know what you guys are probably thinking, right? Didn't this guy just do this video back in December? And yeah, I did. But I've found a lot more information, guys. I've had a lot of PMs from people from the unofficial Discords and in my own Discord and just PMs on Discord in general. And some information I gathered from watching videos from some other content creators and some other content creators giving me some information directly as well. And again, I want to thank Zara for the help with making the document. She really cleaned the document up and made it much more presentable and easier to read. And the people that gave probably the most information to me on the Discord were Jordan and LeCube, so thanks to both guys. And also Society of Gaming, I got some information from him, and Nico Tulo, I got some information from him. So with all the introductions out of the way, I want to get into this video. It's going to be very long. I have quite a bit more information, so if you did watch the last video, please watch this one all the way through, because you'll find quite a bit of new things that were not covered in that last video. The link to the document is in the video description and is a fully comprehensive source for absolutely everything that is known about Throne and Liberty, complete with sources for all of the information presented. Be sure to check out the document, and let's get into the details of this game. Throne and Liberty is an NCSoft developed MMO that has been in development for over 10 years. At one point it was called Lineage Eternal and was a top-down MMO similar to Lost Ark. At some point, they decided to pivot to a third-person MMO and change the IP to Throne and Liberty, which is the main reason it has been in development for so long. There's another NCSoft MMO codenamed Project E that shares the same IP and world. That world is called Navkria. The game is said to be developed on Unreal Engine 4. It is possible they have upgraded to Unreal Engine 5, but I don't have confirmation of that. The server capacity is said to be 3,000 to 5,000 per server. The release date is said to be in the first half of 2023 and was recently reaffirmed in the latest earnings call. The game is being developed for both PC and console, with streaming from PC to a mobile device available through the NC Purple app. An internal playtest happened in August 2022 with 3,000 testers. What they're calling the final test is set to happen at the NCSoft R&D Center in Korea, February 21st and 22nd. They seem to be wanting to do a global beta test once the Western publisher is found. Rumors have been that Amazon would be the publisher, but we still don't know. For the game's monetization, the developers have said they want the game to minimize the effect of pay to win, and for the gap between payers and non-payers to be minimal. They said that the West has become more open to microtransactions, but for an MMO to succeed in the West, aggressive pay to win must be avoided. As for character customization, we have seen some brief glimpses of the character creator during videos. Players can only play as humans, which of course limits customization options. There is an AI character creator option where players can upload a picture to customize the character to look like themselves or whoever they want. Player transformations are a big feature in Throne and Liberty and are a pivotal part of traversing the world. Instead of mounts, players will transform into a wolf for faster travel on land. In the air, players can transfer into a raven to glide to various locations. Sharks have been seen as an aquatic player transformation, and even siege golems are a possible player transformation during sieges. These transformations, combined with the player grappling skill, makes movement and traversal very interesting in this MMO. In the UI on the bottom left, we can see the transformation bar with all the available transformations the player has. Throne and Liberty is heavily centered around the open world and the 3D seamless topography that they have built for this world. Surrounding this open world philosophy, the developers have three key pillars. These pillars are the environment, events, and memorials. The environment pillar refers to the world environment, including the transformations and grappling needed to traverse the world. It also includes the day-night cycles and weather systems. The events pillar refers to the in-game events that happen in each zone. The events happen every 3 hours and last for approximately 20 minutes. One example given of an in-game event is the Wolf Tails event, wherein players collect wolf tails and turn them in at 3 turn-in locations. There is a leaderboard associated with this and all events. In this event, PvP is turned on and players can take the wolf tails from players that have not been turned in. The number of wolf tails in the inventory is displayed on a player's nameplate. This means players are incentivized to turn in the tails, but doing so means they are not collecting more tails. Also, the turn-in vendors reduces in number from 3 down to 1 towards the end of the event, further increasing conflict points towards the end. The final pillar is the Memorials event. These are server-wide events that take place on each server. When a server progresses to the next stage of a Memorial event, the entire server is progressed to the next stage. There is no phasing of individual players, everyone shares the same game world. The UI in Throne and Liberty is very minimalistic and clean. The player nameplate shows buffs below the bar and debuffs above. Health and mana are confirmed player resources. Stamina is also confirmed to be a resource that works with the grappling skill, the Great Sword number 2 skill counterattack, which we will see later, and it appears to be present during transformations. It could also be used for things like sprinting, dodging, and active blocking if any of them are in the game, but we do not know if they're in the game just yet. The console UI shows 4 spots on the bottom left bar for consumables and 8 spots on the bottom right bar for skills. However, on the PC UI, we do not see a consumable bar and instead see the consumables on the 8 slots on the bottom right where the weapon skills are also located. So we don't know if you have 8 slots for weapon skills and 4 slots for consumables, or just 8 slots that you have to share with both weapon and consumables. Another thing that I left out of the last video because I wasn't fully convinced it was a thing is the autoplay button. But after further researching it and really digging into this Reddit post that breaks it all down really well, I am convinced that this MMO likely has autoplay functionality. Why do I think that? Well, let's break it down. First, again from the console UI, we can see what appears to be an autoplay button. You also have an option to set a specific weapon skill to auto use, similar to what Guild Wars 2 does. Further, on the PC UI, you can clearly see what looks like an autoplay button. While some have said that that button is probably for the PvP toggle ability, the PvP toggle ability is actually seen as a big red icon towards the middle of the screen. When comparing the look of this button to previous NCSoft MMOs, it seems very similar to their previous implementation of autoplay buttons. So I think this MMO very likely has autoplay, and we continue to see this button even in the latest videos, which, to be honest, takes this MMO down a notch for me. But I still remain interested based on the other features. I also spotted an auto run to key services text in one of the translated images from the internal beta test. So there might be some limited forms of auto run in this MMO as well. Continuing with the UI, we can see a transformation bar next to the player portrait on the bottom left that shows the available player transformation options. We can also see that this game uses a compass style map instead of a mini map, similar to New World, and we see a day-night timer to the left of the compass. The largest party size I saw was 6, so we might assume that the maximum party size is 6. We also see enemy target frames available on the UI. During one of the boss fights, we see a huge amount of debuffs on the enemy boss. Continuing with what we can dissect from the UI, I got some kickback for saying this MMO looks tab target to me, but from the UI, we see multiple options to lock onto targets. In the console UI, it even says use L1 to switch targets. Also from the PC and console UIs, we see a target lock indicator on the selected target. And from the gameplay videos, we see player projectiles always landing dead center on the target. And I have yet to see a targeting reticule for a free aim skill. We can see a tab target style circle under targeted mobs as well. Plus, the developers themselves stated that the game uses a targeting method during one of the first interviews, which is another way of saying lock on targeting. So at the very least, this MMO has some form of soft locked targeting, but I am pretty convinced it uses full on hard lock targeting, especially when you consider it has a console version and some form of mobile compatibility and autoplay functionality, which is easier to make work with lock-on targeting. And the enemy target frames as well suggest tab targeting. As for classes in Throne and Liberty, your class is essentially chosen by your weapon choice. Players can dual wield weapons and equip 2 weapon sets and swap between them. Essentially, it is very similar to New World. The max number of skills I saw in the gameplay trailer was 8 skills on a level 56 player, so with weapon swapping that makes 16 total skills available. We also saw briefly a skill select screen which shows 8 options for weapon skills. It might be higher on a max level character. The highest level character I saw was 66, so max level is at least level 70 or higher. Just like New World or Final Fantasy XIV, you can level all weapons on one character if you want, which basically makes alts not needed. Tanking, healing, and DPS roles are confirmed. The following weapons have been seen so far: longbow, one-hand crossbow, greatsword, dual daggers, wand, tome, staff, sword and shield, and a one-hand axe or hatchet. Both one-hand and dual wield have been seen. For combat, the targeting is tab lock-on style, as I outlined earlier when talking about the UI. Melee attacks appear to cleave multiple enemies. Pull abilities are seen in the gameplay trailers. The combat seems to be a hybrid action tab style similar to Guild Wars 2 or what Ashes of Creation is going for. Some abilities, like the Greatsword No. 2 counterattack skill, which we will detail later, have a timing component which gives more of an action feel. Another skill, Devotion Sanctuary, is a proximity-based shield ability available on the shield, which again gives a hybrid action combat feel. As for weapon skills, we have only seen a few details of specific skills. One thing I recently learned from a Nico Tulo video is that there definitely seems to be some sort of rarity system for abilities. Red seems to be the tier 1 skill, and green and blue are also skill rarities. We know this from the same skill having different colors, and from the few tooltips we have seen being red and showing tier 1 epic skills and tier 1 modifiers. I will link the Nico video if you want his full breakdown of it. Getting into specific skills that we have seen 3 English tooltips of weapon skills, and we have some loosely translated skills from the G-Star presentation that Jordan and Society of Gaming were able to translate, and I also have another translation from LeCube on Discord. So starting with the first skill, counterattack. This is a greatsword ability that consumes 35 stamina to block attacks. If the defense is successful, damage is reduced 100%, and status effects are ignored. Stamina is reduced based on how much damage is absorbed. When successfully defending against a strong attack, if it is a melee attack, then the skill will deal damage equal to 150% of the basic damage. It appears from the hint text that this skill requires precise timing to be effective, so this skill, in essence, is an action type of skill. I believe we saw this ability in action in the director's preview at 5:52. The second skill is a shield skill called Devotion Sanctuary. This is a shield ability that creates an aura of devotion and allows the player to absorb damage that would otherwise affect party members. This is a proximity-based ability, and to be honest, it sounds like an almost exact copy of the Ashes of Creation tank ability we just saw in the January livestream. That ability was called Aegis, and it is also similar to some other skills I have seen in past MMOs. I have not seen this in a Throne and Liberty gameplay video just yet. The third skill is called Shadow Chaser. This is a dagger ability with a 15-meter range and allows a player to move behind a target and deal damage equal to 100% of the base damage so quickly that only the trailing edge of your shadow is visible. I believe we also saw this ability in action at the 5:38 mark in the director's preview. On all of these abilities, we notice the rarities and the tier of the ability, and the added effects that can occur based on the rarity of the skill. And those are all the skills that we have seen clean English tooltips for. For the translated tooltips, keep in mind the translations are all pretty rough, but you get a basic idea of what the skill is about at least. All of these translated tooltips come from the G-Star presentation. The first ability is a longbow ability called Moxie Gust. This ability has a chance to fire extra arrows based on wind speed and direction and the rarity of the skill. The second ability is one we have seen from the director's preview. It is a wand ability called Lightning Chain. This ability can bounce to extra targets and do more damage when raining, and rarity can increase the number of bounces and reduce the cooldown. The third ability is called Venom Blood. This is a dagger skill that increases the duration of poison effects during the day, and at night the poison damage is increased. Damage and duration can also be affected by skill quality. The fourth ability is called Ghost Step. This is another dagger skill that can increase movement speed and attack speed when a target is killed with this active. It also appears to shadow step to the target, but the translation is pretty rough on this one. We have also seen a few skills that do not have tooltips for them as well. We have a sword and shield pull, a dual crossbows rapid fire ability, a great sword leap, and a staff stun ability into a meteor strike. There are probably some more, but those are the ones I was able to find. We have also seen some consumables on the bars, and we saw one consumable tooltip. This tooltip is for the consumable Elixine, which is a health recovery potion that is bought in the dynamic events shop using in-game currency earned from dynamic events. It appears to have a weight, and it appears to take up 6.6% of the character's inventory with a stack of 268 on the player. This might suggest that a weight-based inventory system is in the game. And as I said before, I have seen this consumable in the bottom right 8-slot bar and in the consumable bar, so it will be interesting to see if this game has a separate consumables bar or not. As for the PvE, past NCSoft MMOs relied heavily on PvP and player-driven content. In this MMO, the developer stated they want to have a heavy focus on making compelling PvE content, and to have a game that fits all playstyles. So PvE is not an afterthought in this game, and PvP will still be well represented. The dungeons are said to be open world, and in the latest update, PvP is said to be on in these dungeons. The dungeons have multiple levels, and players can use grappling or gliding skills to go straight to the last floor of the dungeon if they want to. The raid bosses are open world, and in the past PvP was said to be on for these bosses. It is not clear if that is still the case. The developers have stated they want to have a compelling story in Throne and Liberty, but they want to make it optional for those that are not into story. There's little known about the story, but NCSoft did release a website called TL Story Map and TL Play Novel that explains some of the story. As for PvP, there is still some uncertainty on how a lot of that will work. With the recent director's preview, it is stated that most zones are now safe zones and PvP is not forced. However, in the same video, they also made a reference to PvP potentially being turned on in the open world dungeons. In the past, the PvP karma system was called Evil Deeds, and it was said that this system was active to punish PKers during the day, but was turned off at night. Day cycles last 4 hours, and night cycles last 1 hour in TL. Recently, I discovered a translated screenshot from one of the very recent videos, which still references the Evil Deeds system, so it is very likely that Evil Deeds still exists, but only in PvP-enabled areas. And it appears to punish players that kill those that do not fight back, similar to how the Ashes of Creation corruption system is planned to work. PvP is turned on for certain events such as the Wolf Tales event, and as I said, PvP is potentially on for world bosses and dungeons. There is also a giant flying island called Gigantrith that travels around the map like a subway line every few hours. This island was said to have PvP enabled in the past. It appears every few hours and exists for 30 minutes. As for organized group PvP, there are two systems in place: Occupation or Guild Wars and Siege Warfare. Occupation or Guild Wars are a battle over open world objectives that guilds can own. The weather systems such as the rain can affect these paths to make certain paths unpassable during these battles. The objectives that guilds will fight over are called Blessing Stones and Dimension Stones. These two stones together are called Possession Stones. The acquisitions of the Possession Stones allows for enhanced guild capabilities and the procurement of necessary raw materials. For Siege Warfare, this is where guilds will fight over large battlefield objectives such as castles. Defenders have the advantage, but as time goes on in the battle, players can transform into a golem destroying the wall or jumping on top of the wall. A golem that carries people to the top of the wall is also available. The victory condition appears to be channeling a throne room for the attackers or the timer running out for the defenders, and the victors appear to be handsomely rewarded for their efforts. As for travel and transportation, fast travel appears to be limited. There seems to be an emphasis on players using transformation and the grappling skill to move around the map. Movement around the map is active and not passive. There was one potential teleportation stone seen in the first gameplay trailer, but it is not clear what that is used for. As I already mentioned, the flying island Gigantrith is a method of travel that appears every few hours and allows players to access areas they cannot otherwise access, so it might be heavily contested if PvP is turned on. I have already touched on the day-night cycles and weather systems a bit. As stated before, daytime lasts 4 hours, night lasts 1 hour. The day-night cycles and weather systems affect a lot of things in the game, such as boss tables and drop tables. It can change what kind of mobs spawn. It can also affect player abilities. An example for day-night affecting skills is a dagger skill called Ghost Step, which increases movement speed at night. Another skill that was said to be affected is a dagger skill called Venom Blood Poison, which has a longer duration during the day but higher damage at night. As for weather affecting player skills, the two shown are wind increasing projectile distance and gliding distance. Another is a lightning skill, hits one target when it is sunny but hits multiple targets when it is raining. Other things the weather can affect is filling a certain alternate path during castle sieges during rainstorms, or the wind increasing gliding distance enough to allow a player to scale a castle wall. Another very interesting feature of the weather and day and night cycles are that some players can affect these systems via spells that are only accessible to players at the top of various leaderboards. These spells are only usable twice a day and can change the weather or day-night cycle for 10 minutes. These spells could be very useful in Siege or Guild Wars if used at the right time. We have seen brief glimpses of many open world raid bosses in TL. The one we have seen the most is a giant sandworm called Queen Blender on the TL Play Novel website. We have also seen a Treant boss, a demon boss, a rock golem boss, an ogre boss, a spider boss, and an undead boss named Kahul Tevent, and I've also added several more bosses to the bestiary section of the document as well. Pets and minions are seen in the gameplay trailers, but is not sure what the purpose of these is yet. The herbalism profession was spotted in the gameplay trailer, and that is the only profession I have seen so far. Some have told me they have seen mining, but I have not found it in any of the videos yet. Finally, ChatGPT integration is possible after NCSoft mentioned wanting to use it for game development. And that concludes the known information for Throne and Liberty. To me, despite the concerns about pay to win, since this is an NCSoft title, I am very interested in this MMO. I love the focus on the open world, the multiple PvP options that are available, the lack of instancing and fast travel. The weather and day-night cycles are very interesting and are different from what we have seen in past MMOs. This MMO is doing things differently and is not just yet another WoW clone. That alone makes me interested. Even if the monetization ends up ruining it, I will at least get a month or two of enjoyment out of it. No other MMO releasing in 2023 really interests me. Of course, I am very interested in Ashes of Creation and the Riot MMO for different reasons, but both are a long ways off still. I'm willing to give this game a shot and will be covering it further in the future. If you liked this video, consider watching my previous Everything Known videos on the Riot MMO and the new ZeniMax MMO. And I'm actually thinking about redoing the Riot MMO video yet again. With all that out of the way, consider subscribing. I'll see you guys in the next video.